Zambia Theater Project presents Homeless Network News, starring Caroline Manheimer, Corey Walton, Greg Tramazak, Marvin Howard, Annette Bryant, Robert Flood, Sol Sepulveda, Tahiti Robinson. A hearty welcome to America and welcome to our viewers. Welcome to Zambia's Homeless Network News. I'm your host, Corey Walton, coming to you live from Zambia's world headquarters in downtown Minneapolis. Now, the title of this week's episode is Our Fathers, in honor, of course, of Father's Day last Sunday, honoring all the great dads out there. And our sponsor for this week's episode is Urban Ventures. Urban Ventures works alongside 70 local partners to address opportunity gaps in academics, nutrition, physical activity, parenting resources, and more, all with the overarching goal to prepare and send every youth in Urban Ventures neighborhood to college or post-secondary education. We encourage all of you to visit their website at urbanventures.org for more information. Now, as usual, we will kick off our HNN episode with our On This Day in History segment. Now, did you know that on this day, June 24th, 1968, police in Washington, D.C. used tear gas and other methods to clear out Resurrection City, which was located in the National Mall in Washington, D.C. What was Resurrection City? In 1968, the Poor People's Campaign, an organization started by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. shortly before his death, was set up an encampment in Washington, D.C. to non-violently protest and shine light on the plight of the Americans' impoverished. They named the encampment Resurrection City, and it survived for just over a month until protesters were finally overcome by police and the crowds were dispersed. Because of the many difficulties and the unfortunate ending, Resurrection City has often been described as a failure. However, the meetings and demonstrations were successful in launching several food and school lunch initiatives. But more importantly, the Poor People's Campaign changed the national conversation about poverty and hunger. It united poor people from different communities with a common purpose to fight alongside each other for economic justice. And members of that temporary community said their farewells on this day, June 24th, 1968. Now, on with the show. Next up, a very special segment that looks at some aspects of the traditional role of dads in our families and communities. And here to bring you that are a couple of friends and troopmates of mine, Marcia Barnes and Tahiti Robinson, who also give a special shout out to dads experiencing homelessness.
You know, I was looking up in the dictionary, what is a father? Because this is one of those subjects that people have a lot of feelings about. And I was a little bit disappointed that it didn't have a lot of substance to it. It just described a male parent having a relationship with his child or children. And I thought, bad humbug. There's so much more substance to being a father. What say you? What do you think?
A father is one who takes the garbage out. A father is one who brings home the bread. A father is one who disciplines the children. A father is one who deposits the babies in the mother's belly. A father, one who cooks the meals on the grill at picnic. A father is the one who cuts the turkey or the meats on holidays. A father is one who says the blessings at the table. A father, one who's the last one to bed because he checks to see that all is safe in the house. A father is one who fixes things. A father is one who drives the car and takes the family places. A father is one who carries all the heavy baggage. A father is one who cuts the grass and shovels the snow. A father is one who has the final word on important matters and signs the paper. So if the father is absent, I take my hat off to the mothers who play the part of a father and believe they should celebrate Father's Day.
We at Zamia Project would like to acknowledge the fathers who are homeless.
Yes.
You are just as important and you are just as appreciated and loved. John, the Zamia Theater Project, we combat one of our goals is to end homelessness. In your work, could you give us an idea of how many men are homeless? Do you keep statistics on that?
Yeah, we about probably 40% of the people we work with are homeless, and they a lot of times people think just because you have shelter for a day you're not homeless, but if you're not on the lease, if you have no legal recourse to be there, then you're homeless and stuff. Because a lot of men get put out, when there's a dispute or whatever, and they just figure out a place to stay. I've had men sleeping in their car in the wintertime because they are afraid of shelter sometimes, especially if they have past gang affiliations and things. We work with guys coming out of prison. We have some sex offenders that we work with. We don't turn anybody away because everybody needs hope.
What are some of the things that you found that are helpful for your men?
When we find organizations that are willing to help them, when we can send them somewhere that they can actually get real help and not turned away because they don't have this, that, or the other, and where they're treated like a human being.
How would you describe your success rate? Give us an example of how that would look.
I'll give you an example of me. I was a drug addict when I came. I was had 10 felonies, in and out of prison 3 times. The first thing they did is have me go to treatment. And then after I went to treatment, I came back to the program, and then they started working on, I was a thief, liar, things of that nature. So we started working on my character. It didn't matter if I'm feeding my kids or around my kids if I'm a drug addict and a liar. So those are the types of things we build character in.
So you've seen a lot of success stories.
We've seen a lot of success stories. We've reunited families even. I'm also a minister, so I've married a number of over 100 marriages over the last years. We do marriage counseling. We support the whole family. Fathers need support. A lot of people think that they don't need anything, and there's not a lot of programs for fathers. So we help them wherever they're at.
Yes, yes, yes. A couple of wonderful segments that included on the back end Marcia's fantastic interview of John Turnipseed, Executive Vice President of this week's sponsor, Urban Ventures. From gangbanger to one of the nation's most respected pioneers of community restoration, I encourage everyone to go to Urban Ventures website, that's urbanventures.org, to read more about John's amazing story. And as a reminder, if you were triggered by any of those pieces, please feel free to drop any of your thoughts into our chat box. Next up is a bonus interview segment. Boy, do I love HNN interview segments. This time we feature Nelson, a friend of Zamia's. Talk about a unique story. Check out Greg TZ Traumazak's interview with Nelson as he serves up some very interesting aspects of his life.
Hello, Greg here with Homeless Network News. And Father's Day was June 20th, but it's never too late to celebrate fathers. And here we are with Nelson. Hi, Nelson.
Hello. I want to talk to you about Father's Day. I was homeless for 20 years, and I also neglected my daughters. I did everything in my powers to do what be strong for them, but I was too weak, and I found the easy way out, just leaving them behind. But I didn't leave them behind financially, because financially they were sad. But I left them without love. My kids didn't turn out to be negative. I'm proud of my daughters. I got some beautiful daughters. I'm very proud of them. These are my daughters, and our relationship is very, very awkward. But I let it go ahead and mend itself. See what happens, I love my daughters. I've had some fun with them. I've had a nice last year's Father's Day was great, you know, very great. I had a good time. We had a big cookout, and my other Father's Day was the year before that, and that was in Florida. Oh, I had a good time. I went walked to the beach with my daughter from one end of the beach to the other end, and swimming and jet skiing and nice restaurants, and hanged out with my grandson, got to know him, you know, and but now, you know, they set boundaries with me, so I'm okay with that till they make another boundary line for me to come closer to, you know? Like I said, I was homeless for 20 years, and excuse my French, it sucked. It was terrible. I suffered. I had fights. I had, you name it, you know? People steal things from you, you know? And then on Father's Day, guess where I found myself? I found myself all alone at a park. And it depressed me. It made me very depressed. But today I have 2 kids, you know? What I'm saying is, you know, don't take your kids for granted, and don't let your kids take you for granted either.
My father was tall and handsome.
I loved my very patient dad.
I am not a father.
I love spending time with you.
I love being with my father.
Fatherhood has a diverse meaning to me.
A child just needs somebody, anybody, that will love them consistently.
I love my father, who was an example to my brothers, my sons, and me and my daughter, who were also single parents.
I'm named after my father, and he was a great art teacher and head of the art department on Chicago's West Side.
My father was the oldest of 9 siblings.
Missed.
Patriarchy.
Absent.
Family.
Family.
Head.
Child support.
Necessary.
Wonderful.
Fatherhood.
Now, how's that? 2 great segments for the price of 1. One of our most popular segments of the show, the Zam family, and our go-around segment. And of course, Greg's interview with Nelson, sharing some of his life experiences with us. But now it's time for, dun, 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 or you guessed it, it's time for our HNN headline news segment. Temperature is rising. Here with insight on the relationship between climate change and homelessness is none other than Harry Waters Jr. and Esther O. with the latest installment of dun, 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 Headline News.
Oh, once again, we got the same old news. Oh, dang, it's hot.
I know. This is brutal.
That's why I say smash the patriarchy.
Harry, what's that got to do with anything? The heat, the headlines? Come on, we're supposed to be like honoring our fathers here, not smashing patriarchy. Seriously.
I love my dad, but smash the patriarchy. Smash the patriarchy to save the planet.
Patriarchal capitalism imperils not only women. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
The planet itself. Okay, so that's true, but just like chill out a little bit.
No, that's what I'm saying. Get this planet to cool down. Smash patriarchy into smithereens. Check this out. Fact, the patriarchy causes climate change. Climate change is caused by the patriarchy.
Okay, Harry, I see you are hot and bothered, but let's cool down these headlines and like look at fathers, homelessness. Here, how about this? Homelessness is a crisis.
But climate change makes it much worse. Homelessness and housing, unaffordability overlap with climate disasters in disturbing ways. The states where more than half of the homeless populations in the U.S. resides, California, New York, Florida, Texas, and Washington, are home to some of the highest housing costs in the country. They're also among the 6 most extreme weather-prone states. You hot and bothered yet?
Yeah, this is getting us all hot and bothered. Homelessness and the climate crisis. Not only are rising temperatures a danger to individuals already experiencing homelessness,
but extreme weather events driven by our changing climate are leaving more and more people with nowhere to turn.
Homeless populations across the US will grow as more natural disasters strike.
Climate change will force millions of Americans to leave their current residences semi-voluntarily or forcefully. Last summer, Phoenix endured 53 days of 110-degree heat.
Northern California continued to experience devastating wildfires.
And the Gulf Coast suffered from more deadly hurricanes. These places may become uninhabitable.
But not everybody will suffer equally. The resulting population shift is likely to increase poverty and widen the gulf between the rich and the poor.
Climate catastrophe also disproportionately impacts communities of color who are already more likely to experience homelessness. Crises collide as climate emergency pushes America's homeless population to the brink.
Although COVID relief measures and Biden's new infrastructure proposal are providing a climate action plan, advocates for the homeless expressed cautious optimism. New affordable housing is a clear win.
Yes, if it's actually affordable.
And the benefits of upgrading and retrofitting existing units are twofold. Energy efficiency is good for the planet.
And it all lowers utility costs for renters.
And if enough training is packaged with new green jobs in Biden's plan, those jobs could be a much needed path to stability for many needing a decent job.
Biden has joined the G7 leaders in backing new conservation and emission targets to curb climate change.
And the next headline,
Line 3 protests test 2 of Biden's campaign pledges.
The Line 3 pipeline expansion here in Minnesota tests the Biden administration's commitment to climate policy.
In his first week as president, Mr. Biden signed an executive order vowing to address climate change, rejoined the Paris Climate Agreement, and canceled the Keystone XL pipeline. He also recently suspended oil drilling leases in the Arctic National Wildflower Refuge.
The president has so far stayed silent on Line 3, which would add nearly 200 million tons of greenhouse gases to the atmosphere each year, the equivalent impact of annual emissions from 45 coal-fired power plants or 38 million cars.
Why a rural pipeline has become a climate battleground.
Activists consider any new pipelines and expansion or replacements of existing pipes a lifeline for fossil fuels that delays the transition to cleaner energy that scientists say is needed quickly to avoid catastrophic warming.
And next headline, thousands came to Minnesota to protest new construction on the Line 3 pipeline. Hundreds left in handcuffs, but more vowed to fight on. So, you're still wondering why smash the patriarchy to tiny bits? Here is one more problem with patriarchy. How does a system that was supposedly created for the domination of men fail so miserably to protect so many men from dreadful outcomes? Women certainly have not gained equality.
Definitely true. Yet, at the same time, it appears more men than women are on death row, killed on the job, killed in military service, commit suicide, and are homeless.
Yeah, for a system that elevates men above women, the patriarchy has a poor track record of improving the outcomes for most everyone except the few at the top of the pyramid.
At the top of the pyramid, where the richest 50 Americans now have as much wealth as the bottom 165 million.
The ever-growing concentration of wealth at the top of the population weighs like a malignant tumor over society.
No social problem, whether it be inequality, global warming, education, healthcare, the pandemic, or homelessness, can be solved without mobilizing the vast fortunes at the top of the pyramid and placing them under the democratic control of the people.
Yes. And what else is there to say? Except, I love you, Dad. And that's it for today's headlines with the same old news.
wonderful news segment as always. Thank you so much, Harry Waters Jr. and Esther O, for that informative edition of Headline News. And as always, if you have any thoughts on any of those news items, please feel free to drop those in the chat box. But keeping the train moving down the tracks of our Father's episode, here is a special friend of Zamia who is also a father. And do me a favor if you would, grab a pen and some paper because we got a short little multiple choice quiz you want to throw at you that I think you'll find pretty interesting. Now, here sharing some of his unique life experiences, please welcome to the show, Mr. Thomas Strapp.
Hello, my name is Thomas, and welcome to this little quiz. I grew up in A, a small town in southern Minnesota, B, the inner city of Minneapolis, or C, a middle-class neighborhood in St. Paul. Both of my grandparents were A, immigrants from Ireland, B, both sets were born in Minnesota, or C, were from the planet Hollywood. My parents wanted me to A, grow up and take over the family farm, B, become a Catholic priest, or C, they didn't care what I really did as long as I finished college. In the end, A, I finished 3 years of college, B, I got a master's degree, or C, I dropped out of high school and ended up getting my GED and went to vocational school. I was A, an 8th grade teacher, B, a Catholic priest, C, a house painter, or D, did hiring for a large corporation. I am divorced from my first wife, with whom I have 2 children. B, I am now happily remarried. Or C, I am a single, healthy gay man. What caused me to become homeless was A, post-traumatic stress from my experience of years of unemployment. B, a severe drug addiction, which eventually led me to prison. Or C, back alimony payments and an addiction to gambling. For me, the hardest part about being homeless was A, the overwhelming sense of hopelessness. B, the feeling that I had been a failure. Or C, the loss of friends. The main reason I try to share my experience in my story is A, so that I can help others learn from my experience, B, so that others don't make the same mistakes that I made, or C, because it helps me heal from my experience. Now let's see how well you did. I grew up in what's called the Groveland Park area of St. Paul, and it was a very middle-class area, very homogeneous. Almost everybody in my neighborhood looked and acted just like me. Very white, very middle class. I had 3 older brothers and an older sister. In the end, I liked being the youngest, and my brothers and sisters did spoil me as I was growing up. Both sets of my grandparents were immigrants from Ireland. My parents didn't care what I did as long as I finished college. Getting an education was real important in my family. I was a teacher for a number of years. I taught 7th and 8th grade. Eventually, after I got my master's degree, I ended up going in the seminary, and I became a priest. I'm a single, healthy gay man. And that was another issue with me in the church. I wanted to be a healthy, open gay man, and that wasn't compatible with being a priest. What caused me to become homeless? A severe drug addiction, which eventually led me to prison. I ended up getting arrested, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times for possession, and I ended up going to prison for 6 months. For me, the hardest part about being homeless, that sense of being a failure, that sense of hopelessness, and that sense of losing friends. I think it shows that homeless people can come from any background. And I believe that almost anyone or any one of us can become homeless. It just depends on the circumstances. I do this because it helps me and it helps me heal from my experiences. So I hope this has been helpful to you. I hope you benefit in some ways from it, but mainly I have benefited from it. So I thank you for listening.
Hey, now, how about the use of multiple choice questions to highlight and shatter stereotypes? So how'd you do on the test? Did you learn something interesting? Maybe even something about yourself? Drop those in the chat box, please. And thanks so much, Thomas, for that unique way of shining light on all of our tendencies to focus our attention on preconceived notions at the expense of our individual characteristics and experiences. Now, this segment is one of my favorite parts of HNN. hosted by our finger on the pulse of the community advocate for unity. That's right, you know him as Roberto Blood. This week, Roberto brings you the fourth and final installment of his series on redlining as part of our always popular In Focus.
So, what have we learned about redlining? That it started in Minneapolis in 1858, that it was prominent in the late 1920s and early 30s, that the main purpose was to keep the poor and minorities out of the upper class neighborhoods, to keep them white. Nobody was immune to redlining. The homeless, mentally ill, the LGBTQ plus community, even the handicapped were forced to live in squalor. So, does redlining still happen in Minneapolis? The answer is, look at your neighborhood. Look at the makeup of your community. Look at the housing offered to low-income homeless people living in those communities. There's your answer. We are not products of our community. Our communities are products of us. If we want safer, cleaner, better, affordable housing options, then we together, as a community, must make our neighborhoods great. Change is something we all must strive for. Thanks for joining me this season on In Focus, and we'll see you next season. And remember, stop staring, start seeing. Peace, I'm out.
Thanks, Roberto, for that fantastic segment and for that wonderful 4-part series on redlining. Do you have any thoughts or feelings on what Roberto shared, or maybe some reflections on the redlining series in general? Please share those in our chat box. Our next and last segment features a ZAM family member who needs no introduction, but I'm going to give her one anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, the stupendous, the magnificent Tahiti Robinson with her wonderful rendition of Our Father, also known as the Lord's Prayer.
For thine is the kingdom and the glory forever.
Thank you so much, Tahiti, for sharing one of my all-time favorites, the Lord's Prayer, otherwise known as the Our Father. And speaking of Our Father, what a wonderful way to end the Our Father episode, as well as season number 5 of HNN. That's right, in case you didn't know or you just forgot, this brings us to the end of season number 5 of HNN. But pause those crocodile tears because we ain't saying goodbye for good. We're just taking a brief rest. And we're warning you to be on the lookout for our special in-person live screening events of HNN that will be popping off later this summer. More information on those will be coming through the Facebook page and our Z newsletter. And also check back with us for details about season 6 of HNN coming this fall. But in the meantime, thanks for tuning in for all of these weeks, including this week, all of our episodes of HNN. But before we go, we'd like to thank our entire ZAM family, you, our viewers, our ZAM-tastic directors, Esther O and K Flo. Special thanks to Marin, AKA Junior, and my girl Ames holding it down in the chat. And a heartfelt thanks to our guests, John Turnipseed, Thomas Strapp, and Nelson for dropping by and sharing. We'd also like to give a warm thank you to our sponsors, South Minneapolis-based Urban Ventures. You can learn more about them and their wonderful programs by visiting their website at urbanventures.org or by clicking on their link on our Facebook page. And as a reminder, for all the ZAM latest, check out our website at zamiatheater.org. And while you're there, sign up for our quarterly Z News, our quarterly newsletter. For all the latest, you can also click on the events tab on our Facebook page. And while you're there, don't forget to hit like. But in the meantime, we'll see you at the in-person screenings in this fall for season 6 of Homeless Network News.